You're listening to Why Germany podcast, the best place for relocation stories and expert tips, sponsored by Over the Offek, relocation agency to Germany, with your host, Eden Levine.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Why Germany. My name is Eden Levine and with me is Miriam Mircea. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So today we have a very, very interesting story. I'm looking forward for you to hear it. But we first start with why Germany, Miriam?
Why not? Well, it was a life decision I took in a few days, and it was based on two major factors: my then boyfriend, now husband, and the fact that I really wanted to change the place I was living in and get myself into a place where I would have a chance at a really good life. So Germany seemed to match that criteria, actually.
Absolutely. Okay, then I'm eager for you to start. Take us all the way back as you need and get going.
All right. I've always wanted to do something different for myself, as I have been encouraged by my parents to do so. I do not come from the typical Romanian family where everybody's supposed to stay together till the end of time. So I have always heard from my parents the fact that I was free to do whatever I wanted to. I was given complete freedom since I was a child, and I was trusted that I would take the right decisions, which I have, more or less. And I have been encouraged to spread my wings and fly, as difficult as it might have been for my parents, and I'm sure it was, or maybe is. So my mentality was wrapped around, and I say in quotations, escaping. There was no actual threat to my family or to the country, but then again, I knew I was different. And by different, I don't mean like having a, special kind of being, just different in terms of thinking. And I didn't fit very well with my peers. So I knew there had to be something I would change. I have followed a school, so I was basically registered to a school where we would learn French from the get-go, from day one, first class. And we were there surrounded by French people, so my mind was broadened to visiting France, seeing what France could offer. And as soon as I could, which was my first year of university, I did go to France and I lived there and studied there. And that was my actual contact with another civilization full on, where I had to be on my own and integrate and do everything that was needed to survive. And I have done that very successfully, actually. I was offered the job at the university I was studying, but I couldn't take it because Romania was not in the European Union. I was forced to go back, and forced is really what I mean by forced. And I had suffered from a few weeks depression for being back, and I knew that moment that I really needed to go again, and this time for real and for good. So circumstances made it so that my then boyfriend was also finishing up his compulsory military service in Greece. And he was looking for a career path, being fresh out of medical school. And somehow he established that Germany or England would be the best options for a future dermatologist. And we settled on Germany because he could speak German, and it was also cheaper from the point of view of living costs for him. Keep in mind, I could speak no German and I had no money. So, but it didn't really matter to me at the time. I just said, okay, this is now or never kind of thing, like everything or nothing, like in poker. So pretty much grabbed my stuff and quit my job that I was enjoying very much back home. And then I left. And I came to Germany in March of 2011. So it is now August of 2024. And yeah, still alive and kicking. And still here in the same region of Germany. We have not moved yet. We have been debating it. But it's a very difficult decision to make, because the older you get, the more difficult it is to tear yourself from habits and from a certain comfort. So yes, that's very much in a nutshell how actually I ended up in Germany. Although I have to mention, as a young girl, perhaps, I said to myself I would never visit Germany, ever.
Because of the Second World War or what?
No, just because I didn't like the people, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
And lo and behold, here we are. I mean, life is always interestingly funny or ironic, if you will. And I said to myself, I might visit Berlin. I might, if an opportunity might arise. But otherwise, why would I ever come here? And fast forward some years later, I was actually moving to this country and registering myself to language classes. And it blew my mind, and it still does sometimes looking back.
The fact that you're here.
The fact that I have been, sort of putting myself through it willingly, first of all, in the name of love and money.
It should be a book, a name of a book.
I
In the
might
name
write
of
a
love
book.
and money. Yeah.
Who knows? If I make it to 50, I think my memoir is already a project I've been thinking about. I don't know, I'm joking, but you never know these days because everybody's writing books and, why not? It's easy to
Why
write a book
not?
nowadays, yes.
You
But
just tell AI your story and then create a book for you.
I might, that's not really the path I would go down to be honest with you, because I see some of my students or my pupils at school trying to use AI for their homework. And it's really not something I condone. It's not needed, but no comment, no further comment.
No comment. Very good. All right, then I have a few questions for you. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning of your story. So you're saying basically I'm a special kind of person, and also my parents are kind of special kind of parents because they were not telling you, hey, let's keep all us together, which I've heard already before. Let's be together as a family or as a community if it's in your, I don't know, village or town or whatever. So do you think that is it connected, or like did your parents notice from the get-go that you were a bit special and that's why they said it to you, or are you all a special family? What do you think happened there?
That's a nice way of putting it. It's almost like an indirect compliment. My parents were also different from their peers and from their friends and everybody else in their community at the time in the 60s and 70s. So they're born in the 50s, both of them. And they've lived through very, very hard communist times. Very hard. The hardest communist times in all of the Eastern Bloc. So their minds were kind of wandering around, being both of them intellectuals in their own way. And I'm not going to say they wasted their lives staying in Romania, but I will say it. And the one decision I wish they would have taken would have been to immigrate, because they've never actually fit in a traditional sense of putting up with, the situation and not making any comments or not wanting more for themselves. So since they couldn't do more for themselves, they wanted to pour those hopes and expectations into me, being an only child. And I had to carry the banner, So I took it upon me to somehow perhaps fulfill what they couldn't do. And also I identified with not being so a conformist, if you will. I was not really, I was following the rules because I had to, and I didn't want to stir a revolution. But actually, I am a bit of a fire starter. I just try to hold myself together as much as I can.
To do it smarter.
Yes, I think it's smarter to be quiet at times and to just observe from the side. And silence is golden, you know what they say. So actually, I said to myself, if my parents couldn't do what they wanted to do and what they should have done, I'm going to do that for myself. I left actually when I was 21, and I was having an amazing job and I was earning very well. So I was not, let's say, poor from the traditional point of view. I could offer things to myself. I could travel. I could buy, certain experiences, but I was not intellectually and mentally fulfilled. And I felt that I would have to tone myself down to a point where it would be death of the spirit. And I think my parents would have been terribly upset. So, yeah, I thought, well, the only way is out. And actually, nothing was holding me back, to be honest. Of course, I had grandparents at the time. They were still alive, and there was the sentimental issue. But then again, it doesn't help if we are all together under the same roof and we're all poor.
Suffering together.
It's not my thing. No, thank you.
Yeah. And are they still there?
My parents are still in Romania, yes. And yeah, Well, I'm trying to work on that, to be honest. I don't know exactly what the best option is because we ourselves have not decided where we want to be located or to establish ourselves for the next few years. But as soon as we figure that out, and we have to figure it out because time is ticking, I was thinking perhaps I could bring them here to just provide them, an easier life and maybe some medical care. Not maybe, surely some medical care. And but it's nothing fixed so far. They are still there. They are my only, I would say, living relatives in the country, and I have family in America. So
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, no, good. So you mentioned that you've learned French. Actually, I remember my grandma. She was also born in Romania, and she would speak French. Also, we have relatives in France, so it seems to me like a lot of Romanians do speak French as part of the country, of the culture. But my question would be. You were there, you were happy there, you were forced to go back. So what prevented you basically from choosing France as your destination of living?
Very good question. My then boyfriend, my life partner, he doesn't speak French, and it would be tremendously difficult to turn everything around and have him learn the language as a future doctor back then. Um, Yes, well, that's pretty much it. There's nothing much else to say. I lived, basked in the beauty of the French culture and language because this is what I have known since I was 7 years old. I could speak it better than my native Romanian at the point. We were just taught to speak French at all levels, and it was an elite kind of school which arose after the revolution of 1989. It was a very, very pioneering project, if you will, together with a similar school where English was taught like that, and a similar school where German was taught like that. But for some reason, my parents, being the romantics that they are, they decided that French would be easier since my mother is an English teacher and English wouldn't be an issue whatsoever. And my father could speak French. So, they just put one and one together and figured, sure, let's have her learn French. And I had nothing against that. I'm very grateful for their decision and for the fact that they thought of my future and of something that could provide me, again, a sort of an escape. And I say it in quotations. And I love France. I love the culture. I love speaking the language. I love everything that has to do with it. And I'm trying to go back to France as much as I can, but it hasn't proven to be that easy, in fact, although I'm really next door, sort of speak. We have to plan things for us because we have a certain lifestyle and we cannot just go to France to be in France. We want to do it right,
Yeah.
So I don't want to go camping in France, for instance. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. Kudos for everybody who can do it. It's just not for me. And it's much easier to be honest about the things you like and dislike rather than to put up with something for the sake of an experience. And I teach French at school, actually, but okay, teaching French and speaking French are two different, let's say, obstacles at this point because our pupils are not exactly motivated to learn. French is not a language you just pick up. You have to study it. You have to sit home and open the books and properly study it old school, like we used to do in school. Not just watch 2 TikTok videos and pretend you speak it. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, so this bubble has to be burst at the point. They do sign up for French because their parents wish them to learn the language. And I really don't understand the logic of their parents because the parents don't speak French and they don't know how hard it is to learn it. So anyway, that's another discussion. I was taught French by 4 different teachers. We had 4 different manuals. We had 4 different exams, so yearly exams. I passed my native level when I was 14. I ate French on toast. So
on French toast.
yes, I was exactly. I was very much submerged and immersed into their culture. And when I went into France and I was able to live there, I made it feel like home. It was the most difficult experience I have had so far because the French are not easy people to crack, especially if you do not speak the language. And I spoke it perfectly, and yet I had immense trouble my first weeks there as a student, all alone on campus. But I said to myself, I didn't come here to come back home. So, I will stay and I will turn this around for me, which I did. It was hard. I was 18 at the time. And I tried my best and I did manage a lot of things and I was very accomplished as a Erasmus, let's say, scholarship student. I was forced to come back solely because Romania was not in the EU, solely because of that.
Yeah.
There was nothing else, pushing me to go, nothing else.
No, I understand. And I want to touch base on the topic of your husband now, right? So he's from Greece, correct?
Yes.
And how did you guys meet?
Through an interesting circumstance. It was totally out of the blue and coincidental. So we basically met at a student party in Greece. I was vacationing for the first time on my own around Athens, and there was a party somewhere. I don't remember the location, close to the beach probably, and he happened to be there. So he's a very friendly person, a very open person, a very kind person, and he just chatted me up because I seemed a bit lost probably. And he spoke yeah, that was a standard. He spoke English very well. I'm sorry. He spoke English very, very well. So I figured he must be British. Then later I found out he studied English with a British teacher, and he had a very good accent. And I thought, wow, look at that. So he sounded very proper and very trustworthy. And this is how we met. And then we just met again for some more vacation. And I hoped we would meet again, and we did. And then we took it from there. And it was somehow long distance until we came to Germany, actually. So it was 2008 until 2011.
I see. And so you said that he spoke German already. Was it because he was planning or?
Actually, I'm never sure about that. I do believe that he learned it as a hobby language, as in his parents wanted him to learn a second language, and he also was learning to play an instrument, so a bit of music at the time. And I think they also had a spark of genius and told him to learn German on the side as a few hours a week kind of thing. And they sent him to an institute in Athens where they would teach German at quite a high level. So his German was pretty good when he arrived here, whereas I was, in air, floating in air. I couldn't understand anything. I could say just auf Wiedersehen, and that was it.
Hello.
I was just hello. That was I learned it later. And the only thing, he was the motivation, and also I wanted to prove to myself that I could learn German as well because he could speak it, so why not me? And but he could do it, and thank God he did, because otherwise we would have been, both of us, very lost in translation, first of all. And I see this issue with many other people who relocate or arrive to Germany thinking it's a walk in the park. It is not. So
Absolutely not. Especially with the language, if we're talking about that topic.
Right.
But it was, you said it was a choice between Germany and, remind me again, which
England.
And England. And what was the factor that made sure that you're going to Germany then?
First of all, the paperwork was cheaper in Germany.
Cheaper.
Cheaper. It was cheaper. The costs were higher back then in England. And also, I am going to refer again to the future medical career of his. So as a dermatologist, I did understand from him actually that it would be a much better country here, so Germany, in order to grow and learn and have an academic career, if possible, on the side. And I think all the the flags pointed to Germany. He could speak the language. Of course, he could speak English too, but that was a factor. Integration costs were not as high, especially in the east of Germany. And also the fact that he could do his research, his PhD here at a very low cost.
Yeah.
So, and then I said, okay, well, sign me up. That was it.
Are you considering relocation to Germany? Visit us now at www.overtheoffic.com and schedule a call with us right now.
So if I understand correctly, basically, the first time you've ever lived together was in Germany.
Correct.
Yeah. Tell me, how was your first days here?
Oh, horrible. Horrible, just horrible. And there's no other way to describe it. And this is nothing, I do not take aim at the country, but the combination of factors, whether the lack of language knowledge on my side, the confusion, where we were, our location, it made it seem like a mountain I couldn't climb. I didn't know where to begin climbing it. So I I was happy to be out of Romania. Let me rephrase that. I was happy to be out of Romania, but I said to myself, this cannot possibly be Germany by how it looked and how people were. And we had encountered a lot of older people, seniors, people with disabilities, and so on. And I looked around and I felt like I was in a nursing home in open air. And it is not how I envisioned my 27th year of life to be, you know. And then, of course, the fact that I couldn't speak German was for me a very big hurdle. I felt extremely belittled in a way because I was 27 and I had to rely on him to go buy mascara and food. And so it was not a very easy time, but I was very determined. I didn't say to myself, okay, well, these 2 weeks didn't work out. I guess I will pack and go home. No, I did have thoughts. I thought maybe this isn't the place for me. Perhaps this is not where I'm supposed to make myself, grow. But it was all in the mind actually. And once I started learning German, I felt more and more at ease. Also, I could understand the bad things that they were said about me, and that also helped. And I thought perhaps it is the place. It just needs more work. And it needs more work in terms of transforming myself mentally and psychologically, because adaptation and integration, it's not a physical relocation whatsoever. That's the last of it.
Right. Yeah, and you also mentioned that you only had 100 euros to your name at that time.
Yep. Yes.
So that's also not
That's
helpful.
all I had. Nope. Nope. Of course, I had no idea how the prices were. I didn't know anything about anything. I was just a person who packed up and came to Germany. So don't do that, by the way, the ones who are watching. Don't do that, kids. No, it's not good to do that. Try to do a bit of research before. The truth is that I was working and I was making my money and everything, but because I was also traveling to Greece and we were talking on the phone a lot, the costs of my phone bill were astronomical, and I was not able to save money actually. I was also enjoying my life in Romania, let's just be honest. I wasn't thinking about saving money. So it was not on my list, on my bingo cards. But I tried to say to myself, once I will come here and once things will unfold, I will be better with money. And I have to smile at that because it's a lesson I'm still learning. And I would say perhaps it wasn't the best planned decision, but I'm very happy that I did take the decision and I did jump in unknown waters. And I'm still learning to swim so many years later here. Because if I had hesitated, I wouldn't have left. And if I hadn't left, I would be by now probably in a mental institution.
Oh my gosh. That's a strong statement.
I'm 100% sure about what I'm saying because I'm referring solely to myself. It is a very, very personalized case. I'm not talking about anybody else. And I cannot, talk about people because I don't know their story. But, and I don't like to generalize, but referring to myself, and I take full responsibility, I would have lost my mind 100%. I would have become a waste, just a waste of a person. I have studied, my parents have somehow told me you could do better, you could do better. So I had instilled in me, self-confidence from when I was a child. I didn't come home being afraid of what I would hear. I was bullied at school. Everybody was bullied at school. So what? we were bullied, we cried a bit, and we moved on. I didn't throw myself out the window because of that or whatever. I just moved on, and we had a laugh about it, and everything was fine. So I didn't lack self-confidence, and somehow, because they built myself up in a way that it made me be a bit more brave than people around me. My parents did get a lot of comments after I left. Why did you let her go? Oh my God, all alone as a girl, and so on and so forth. You live for yourself, right? You live for yourself, not for everybody else. And so my parents just brushed off the comments, and they, in return, in exchange, they would show people my achievements.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, it seems like that you're in general really knowing who you are and knowing where places fit you and where maybe it's not yet a match, but you just need to push through to get there. So it's this awareness about who you are and what you need is very important. So I understand completely where you're coming from. And you're saying basically, yes, there were a lot of hurdles, but when we spoke before, you said I am more German than Germans at the moment. So could you please explain what that saying means for you?
I will do my best to explain it and not lie. So I learned a lot about the German culture and about how they think. And I disagree with some of their mentalities and I condemn them. But on the other hand, in order to make the path smoother for myself, I had to accept them, learn them, and be better at them than they were. In terms of work, right? So I can refer about work because we don't have social life here, so I cannot talk about that. In terms of work, we are very peculiar about certain things being done right. And, I'm very bad with opening letters that I get from certain institutions. I'm very bad at that. I just look at them and I think, yeah, whatever. And that's a reminiscent of my East European culture. But sometimes I open them straight. It's very rare that I open them straight away. But when I do, I say to myself, well done, good gemacht. Like, you did it right on spot, here and there without thinking about it twice. At work, actually, I'm supposed to be very, very correct. I have to be very careful. I have to make sure I know the law pertaining to the schools. I have to know when I talk to the parents what to quote of that law. I have to know some paragraphs. I have to know special cases when it comes to their kids. So I needed to learn these things and somehow also explain to some of my older colleagues who haven't had the chance to freshen up on certain situations. And we are having weekly meetings at school. So every Monday we have meetings and we call it a friendly exchange. It's not, it's a proper meeting. And so there we discuss very, very targeted cases, and they're all based on legislation. So I cannot, we don't take decisions based on, okay, this kid looks darker than the other kid. We're just going to throw him in a class where there are dark skinned kids. It doesn't go like that. There has to be an actual support behind it and an actual explanation that you could offer to people who ask you why, so that you can avoid, discrimination accuse, or I don't know, something like people pointing the finger at you and saying, oh, you didn't know this, did you? You didn't know. And the worst thing is when parents come and tell you, oh, in this, law, it says that this and this, and you didn't know. And you sit there like a dumb, like somebody who's very, very dumb. And you think, yes, well, it was my obligation and I wasn't aware. So we are always going into these meetings with folders which are, this thick, opening paragraph number. And this is because our school principals are also very peculiar about that. So they ingrained it in us. And I am actually preparing for a parent-teacher meeting tomorrow. And I worked on a document which does refer to a law. So I think, of course, don't ask me about laws of parking cars in certain places or whatever. They are not my cup of tea. But when it comes to what I have to do, and I have to do it for the time being, I have to be prepared. Also, it comes to being on time, I suppose. It's a skill I have mastered very, very well being in this country, because in Eastern Europe, when you say to somebody, I'll see you at 11, it means I'll see you at 11:30, I'll see you at 12, I'll see you perhaps at 11. We will see how it goes. And nobody takes offense. But if we establish a meeting and I will show up half an hour later here, it's a federal crime. I mean, they're ready to report you to the police for wasting their time. So I had to master that and ingrain it into my brain that it's much easier and much more useful for me to obey these things. There's no reason for me to rebel here and create a revolution on my own, parading in front of my house with a poster saying I hate being on time. It brings nothing. It's much easier if I just understand it suits me to understand how they work.
Right.
It suits me. It just makes everything easier for life here, and generally having them on our side rather than on the opposite side of the fence.
Right.
So yes, and also the language. I have to mention. Excuse me. I have to mention the language. Um, it is uh, it is a matter of life and death, actually, and I still make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes in the language, even the Germans do. It doesn't mean that I cannot improve, and I'm trying to learn new words, for example, also to impress people. Yes, it's normal to show off, right? But also to not be stagnant at the same level that I was 2 years ago, because growth, it means always something new. You have to, when it comes to the language, and I'm actually very good at languages. I'm very bad at other things, but very good at languages. So I have to put my money where my mouth is. And hence, when I speak to parents, I try to elevate myself. I try to practice certain things and tell them in a nicer way, not just, okay, here's the paper, here's what you have to sign it, goodbye. It's really not, and they would understand me. They would, but that's not who I am.
Mhm.
So I believe that, being more German than the Germans is also having to do with mastering a certain level of language. And this is not the language you will hear in a supermarket or ordering your meal in a restaurant or returning an order or something. It's the language you might hear if you pass a university hall. And
Right.
that's what I would like for myself. Of course, I'm not there yet all the time, but I'm learning. Yes, and also I have to say that I don't. I have taken parts of their culture which suit my personality. So
Yeah.
I cannot fully identify is the wrong word. I cannot fully understand everything, how this country works, because I know that there are certain things that could use an update. They could be modernized, and mentalities especially, but that's not on me. So I just work with what I have, and I want to
Right.
make the most of it.
Yeah, and I think I would argue that there are a lot of Germans who are even not as German as you, like as you, because you're saying more German than Germans. Because I know many who are late, and I know many who have no idea what the law is, and it's like a lot of, especially with this punctuality thing, is referring to more of like the older generation, that they were super strict with that. But I hope that you're not as German as to look outside of the window and yell at people and why are they are doing what they're doing.
Give me a few months.
Maybe when you hit 40.
I am 40, but thank you.
When you hit, okay, good for you.
Thank you. Well, I have to say, I do have certain issues with the situation of our building, and it does involve people from the outside. And I was considering going to the police. So this is actually, it's a matter of security. So
Yeah.
it's not people being outside my window and having a laugh or having, loud music played from their phones. It does bother me. I don't understand the point of it, but I'm not going to throw some, water bags at them to make them go away. It just has to do now with something a little bit more serious, and it has to do with our own personal safety in the place that we live. So, and this does involve people from the outside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, of
So
course.
it's another side of what you said. I It's Sunday today, right? So I don't care if there are people outside skateboarding. There are outside some teenagers skateboarding. I don't care. For all I care. They don't live with me. I don't pay for them. I don't care.
Don't break anything and we're good.
For all I care, as long as they don't break my window or do something bad to the outside of the building or to our car,
Yeah.
let them enjoy it. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So just for our listeners to understand fully, what is it that you are working at the moment? So you are a teacher for?
Okay, I have to mention that I have studied history and French, so I should technically teach history and French. Practically, I am teaching English, French, and German with the purpose of integration. And I have not taught history a single time because there was no need for my history teaching as an ability at the school. There are history teachers for now, it is covered, so they don't need me for that. They do need me for foreign languages, which I can also understand. And I I'm teaching English and French. This is 90% of my schedule, and I will begin again teaching German as of next week.
And for which grades?
5th to the 10th.
Wow, amazing.
So it's the whole range because I do have academic level German, so that would be a C1. And so that was the last exam actually I have taken, the last exam, and I believe that was sometime in 2016 or 17. And I should take a C2, a native level, but I'm too lazy to organize myself, but I should do it. And also I am teaching now. Basically, I'm working with kids who have arrived from Ukraine. So this would be the new wave of foreigners in the country, as well as working with the older kids who have come from Syria, Palestine, Iran, Iraq, etc. So the older wave of immigrants. And otherwise, I have worked for 10 years at a private language school where I have taught the Germans English and French. So it was adults only, mainly, and very, very few children or teenagers.
Wow. Amazing. So it seems like, as you mentioned, that you have integrated from not knowing a single word or only auf Wiedersehen in German to teaching German. So I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
So, Miriam, we are at the last part of our episode. And for that, I would ask you to give our newcomers to Germany one tip that you think would improve their huge chapter that they're going into.
Right. Well, I touched on this briefly before, but I would really like to encourage them to have some money saved before they come to the country, regardless if they visit for a month or two or they wish to relocate, because everything is much more expensive than in other European countries, first of all. And second of all, I have to say your first days or weeks here, you will not be able to earn your keep. So it is extremely difficult to depend on a 10 euro per day basis or having to, portion every cent in order to make ends meet. I was not in the position to do that, also because I didn't think of it or plan it. So it was partially my or mostly my fault. And that's why it would be better if somebody would have a moment of aha and would check their balance before packing their bags. So the other way around, as I did it. And because money makes the world go around. And if you don't have it, it's not going to turn for you, no matter who you are. It doesn't work like that. And of course, everybody talks about learning the language. Yes, I'm a language teacher. What am I going to tell you, right? But I encourage strongly, very, very much, I encourage people to stop whining about it, stop bitching about it, excuse my French, and just do it, because it takes a toll on you. Yes, of course, like everything new, but this country, so if you haven't had a particular invitation to come to this country, if they didn't specifically ask for you, you came here on your own, so basically you're a visitor in somebody else's house. So when you visit somebody else's house, you'll play by their rules, right? It's very, very, very simple. There's no need to complicate the philosophy. Language is the key to open the door, and money makes you visible.
Yeah, I completely understand and agree. Another point about the economical tip that you gave is that you are going to have so many challenges already by coming to Germany. If we're talking about the language, for sure, the mentality, the even understanding where you're at and how to get to from point A to point B. Don't let money be yet another stress factor for your new chapter, as we mentioned. So I completely agree with that, and I encourage definitely to look at your balance before you come here. Absolutely. So Miriam, I want to thank you so much for being part of this episode. I think we've heard a lot of interesting stories and life lessons that people can take away with. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Absolutely, same here. So I see you all in the next episode.
Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Why Germany. If you want to learn more about relocation, make sure to visit overtheoffect.com, your relocation experts.